Welcome guys, I'm gonna cover ARYAN TARI with the black pieces against Levon ARONIAN. This is the second round of the Norway chess tournament in Stavanger, here in Norway, of course, where Magnus Carlsen is the huge favorite, and he actually beat Levon ARONIAN in the tie-break in the first round. And now in the second round, Levon White against our guy, Offerspiel champion ARYAN TARI. ARYAN with the black pieces and also the lowest rated player in the tournament, which would mean Levon ARONIAN probably had some pretty mean plans for him in this game, as we will see as well. ARYAN with the black pieces played the Roy Lopez, or allowed the Roy Lopez, and after following some early theory here, bishop e7, rook e1. Lots of different moves to play here, of course. I'm not going to go through them all, but we will see that the game entered a Marshall Gambit, which is not so popular these days because there's so much theory to learn. At least on the top level, you would need to know tons and tons of theory. Black sacrifices a pawn for an attack. At least on my level, it's an attack, but on this level, the high top level of chess, Black gets a long-lasting positional initiative on the king side. Rook e1 from Levon. Bishop d6 from ARYAN. This is of course the plan, king to bring the queen to h4. G3 from Levon ARYAN, stopping this immediately. Bishop f5 and now d4 from White. So how to proceed here with black after bishop e3? It's not so easy because you have sacrificed the pawn, and suddenly it looks like your opponent is able to finish his development without any hickle at all. Queen g6, knight d2, and then bringing the rook into e8. So ARYAN is making all the normal moves here in the position. Queen f3, bishop g4, queen g2, and now after these moves, of course h4 played to stop something like bishop h3, which could be a nuisance for White. h4 from ARONIAN and bishop e2. Lots of weird and peculiar moves in the Marshall Gambit, guys. This is one of them. Bishop e2, just placing the bishop in the heart of the opponent's position. Knight f1, probably planning maybe some bishop d1 to exchange this one off, or maybe even knight h2 to play maybe something like f3. I'm not sure. Rook e6 from ARYAN, bishop d2, and now we see ARONIAN's plan, knight e3. So a lot of high-level maneuvering in this game, guys. I'm not gonna pretend I understand everything. I reckon you guys do, but I'm just gonna scroll through the game and give you some of my early takes on the proceedings. Rook fe8, a4, and now bishop f3, forcing of course an exchange, and queen h3. Looks like ARONIAN's queen is not doing very well. It's stuck on h2, stuck behind his own pawns, but his main plan is to activate the rook on a1 by playing a b5, which is ARYAN's next problem in the game. He needs to address this, and he plays h6 to get some luft for his king. A, b, and then knight e3, which was ARONIAN's plan all along, trying to exchange a piece. And suddenly it looks like Black's compensation is, slightly more apparent than it was early on. I mean, Black is after all a pawn down, and a pawn down against an opponent like ARONIAN is never any good news, but as long as you have compensation and some play, then you'll survive. But it's not easy to maintaining this throughout the game. Bishop f3, queen back to h3, now that the g4 square is protected. Now suddenly Black is able to force an exchange of queens, which is of course advantageous for ARONIAN since he's a pawn up. ARYAN needs to comply with this, but then plays f5, trying to get some play going. Maybe even f4. Knight e5, he takes this one off. He doesn't play rook e5, Not totally sure what the reasoning for this is. Maybe it is the fact that white is able to activate his pieces so efficiently by playing something like bishop f4 and then rook e8 and then really playing with the bishop here. That might be a reason for this. Maybe even just rook e1 as well, just playing f3 and hitting this rook on e5 indirectly by playing on the pin in the e file. This looks actually quite convincing for white. d e5, king f8, and now with the pair of bishops as well as the pawn up, white is doing well. f4, rook e7, and this doesn't really not look great for ARYAN, but at least it's quite solid still. And now a very interesting decision from ARONIAN. Very often we learn that an opposite color bishop's endgame is always a draw. This is not the case, as ARONIAN will show now, because when you have rooks on the board, this is not a draw anymore. So of course, if you play something like rook a1, a7 here, and trades off the rooks, then of course ARYAN would get a draw without any stress at all. This would be quite simple, I believe, for black. But ARONIAN doesn't do this, of course. He wants to put pressure on his young opponent. He plays rook a5, hitting the pawn on b5. Bishop d3, bishop d4, which is a very nice move. Maybe even playing something like e6 in the near future. Rook c6, stopping this. King f2, activating the king. h5, trying to stop any breaks on the king side. King e3 again, bringing the king into the game. Probably planning b3, right? To harass the bishop on c4, which is lacking squares here for ARYAN. The bishop on c4 is a problem piece. And ARYAN is also down to 11 minutes at this point, which is a problem against such an experienced opponent as ARONIAN. Rook g6, b3, bishop f1, bishop c5 check. Rook coming also into the game pretty soon, I believe. But first, he plays bishop b4, just protecting the c3 pawn and exploiting the fact that rook g3 is not possible because the king going to f2 would mean a double attack and game over. ARYAN didn't do this. He played bishop g2. Now this is a threat. ARONIAN doesn't address it directly. He plays king d4. Of course, he wants this to happen and play for some mating attack with in combination with the pawn on e6. So if ARYAN chooses to be greedy here and play rook g3, greed is good. Not always though, because king c5, king d6, e6 in combination with some rook maneuver would be curtains for the lonely king on e8. So that's not possible at all. He plays rook c6, trying to stop the king from entering the game. Rook a7, g6, check, and now e6. And this is of course ARONIAN's point. Now suddenly there's another way in for the white king on e5 this time, and there's no stopping it for ARYAN, I'm afraid. Rook c7, desperately trying to exchange rooks. Rook f7, and resigns. The king is coming into the game, and e7 is also a threat, and we see the huge difference in quality in terms of the pieces. The bishop on b4 is very mobile in this kind of position, on the opposite color of black's pawns, which means that it's very influential in the black position. This bishop is pretty much trapped on the wrong side of the board. Really, it doesn't really contribute to anything. There's no play going on here for the black bishop, and this positional reason was the number one factor behind ARYAN's loss against Levon Aronian, who played a very nice game against his young opponent. I'm sure though ARYAN will strike back in some later round of the Norway chess tournament. We'll of course follow up with videos of that and more, so feel free to check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, and you know what to do. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as well. So please follow Offerspiel Chess Club to be well updated. Stay updated on our content on social media, and I'll see you guys soon.